In this class, we've talked about 4 definitions of slope. The first one is constant rate of change. The second one is change in y over change in x. And we use that most commonly for a table. Sometimes you'll see it written like this, with the triangles, which just mean the same thing, change in y over change in x. We also talked about on a graph, it can be either rise over run, or the vertical change over the horizontal change. And lastly, when we're talking about between 2 points, we do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So we're going to find the slope of this line for the following points. I'm going to write down my formula. M equals, M is the slope, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Now let's label our points. I'm going to call this will be point 1, and this will be point 2. So that would make this x1, y1, and 10 would be x2, 3 would be y2. So now we just plug in. y2 is, well, let's go ahead and put the fraction, and we'd have subtraction on the top and the bottom. y2 is 3. y2 minus y1 is 4. Now x2 is 10, so that goes in the bottom first. 10 minus 1. Okay, 3 minus 4 is negative 1. 10 minus 1 is 9. So the answer is negative 1/9. I can't simplify that fraction any further, so I'm done. We know that something is proportional if it's linear, which means it has a constant rate of change. And it has a y-intercept of 0, 0. Y-intercept or starting point. If we're talking about something being proportional, we have to explain both of those things. This next example asks us if it's proportional, yes or no, and we have to explain. So let's check and see if it has a constant rate of change. Looks like in my x's, it's adding 1. And in the y's, it's subtracting 3. As long as the slope is the same over and over, then it's going to have a constant rate of change. So if you saw plus 2, but on the y, it was doing minus 6, it's just doubling, so that's okay. So I see that it does have a constant rate of change, but I don't see the y-intercept because the y-intercept is where x is equal to 0. So 0 would have to fit right here because negative 1, 0 comes next. If I continue my pattern, well, that's plus 1. So this would have to be minus 3. 3 minus 3 is 0. So my y-intercept is 0, 0. So yes, it's proportional because it's linear and has a starting point or a y-intercept of 0, 0. Now we're going to practice graphing. We have to tell the slope, the y-intercept, and then graph it. So we're going to make sure we write our slope as a fraction. The slope for this equation is 2 because that's the number in front of x, but I want it to be a fraction, so I put it over 1. This is puff, puff, positive, so slope dude goes up 2, and he always skis to the right 1. My y-intercept is a number by itself, so that would be 0, negative 3. We plot our y-intercept first at 0, negative 3, and from there we go up to right 1. Plot a point, up to right 1, up to right 1, up 2, right 1. Now you need to reverse it, so go back to your starting point, go down 2, left 1, and make your line. It asks us if it's proportional. It is not, because the y-intercept is not 0, 0. It's at -3. And if it's going to be proportional, it has to go through the middle of the graph. Next graph. Our slope is -1/3. It's nice negative, so slope dude goes down 1, but he always skis to the right, so right 3. My y-intercept is 0 because I don't see a number by itself, but I could do +0. It doesn't change anything. So if you don't see it, it's a 0. So my y-intercept is 0, 0. We plot that first. And then we go down 1, right 3, down 1, right 3, reverse it, up 1, left 3, till we can't go any farther. And let's connect the dots and make a line. Yes, this is proportional because it is linear. It's a straight line, and it starts at 0, 0. It goes through the middle of the graph. Last thing we're going to talk about is writing equations in slope-intercept form. Remember that the m stands for the slope, the b stands for the y-intercept, or the starting point. Another way we say that is the rate of change for the slope, or the starting point for the y-intercept. So we have to find those separately and then put it together in y equals mx plus b to make our equation. So it looks like this one is going +2, and in the y's it's going +20. So my slope would be 20 over 2. Remember, we only have to do that one time. You don't really need to do the whole table. Pick the numbers that are closest together. 20 divided by 2 is +10. So that would be the best way to write my slope. Now, the 0 I don't see, so I'm going to have to add it in my table. Well, it would have to go between -1 and 1. So if I think about that, halfway between those would have to be -30. So my y-intercept is 0, -30. Put that together and my equation is going to be y equals 10x, because the slope goes in front of x, minus 30. Last one here, we got to find the slope first. Remember, we picked 2 points at the corner of a square. It's already done for you here. And then we're going to make a right triangle and count the squares outside of the triangle. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1, 2. My slope, this is nice negative, so it's -4 over 2, but there's a better way to write that. 4 divided by 2 is 2, so -2. The y-intercept is where the line crosses the y-axis, the y-intercept. So that would be at, looks like 0, -1. Put that together in an equation. Y equals -2x minus 1.